All right, my child is in kindergarten and doesn't feel comfortable asking to go to the bathroom and won't drink water from his water bottle because he doesn't want to ask to refill it later on. What's the first step to getting him to move in the right direction?
Well, I think we have to understand where that child is in terms of baseline stage of communication and accept it in times of need. So, for example, using the bathroom isn't a time to use strategies to progress a child to bridge up necessarily. So, if the child had a means of communicating non-verbally, for example, some children, the teachers will have a board, a like a kind of a communication board on their desk. The child is told, if you have to go to the bathroom, maybe just put your hand up. If they're not comfortable coming up into the teacher's desk, there's a like a communication board on the wall. The teacher just kind of knows every hour to ask the child, like, you have to go to the bathroom, thumbs up, thumbs down. That's fine, just to get that child to go to the bathroom. If you're talking about having that child put their thoughts together to say it, I have to go to the bathroom, that sounds a little far based on what this parent is describing. It sounds like this child is kind of nonverbal, or if they are verbal, they are maybe quiet one or two words. So for some children that are verbal, and if they have the ability to read or even picture read, we can work on, if this is something the child can accomplish, work on a nonverbal means of pointing, or if they are quietly verbal, to have them be able to to be able to read that question to a teacher, just even
Okay.
one word, bathroom. I had a child that was liked humor. And so he had a card on the teacher's desk that said, go, go, go. And the child went, go, go, go. It made it humorous for the child. But in the majority of cases, I use the need to go to the bathroom, not if the child's not feeling well, if the child, in terms of eating and drinking, as a means of accommodating them and where they're at, and using strategies and interventions to progress them in other areas. Does that make sense? Because you don't
Yeah,
want to not have them use the bathroom and have an accident. This is only a kindergartner, right? And
right.
embarrass themselves just because you're trying to get them to put their thoughts together and say it.
So so if this child can't go, is scared to go to the bathroom or scared to ask, sorry, scared to ask to go to the bathroom, and then there's an accommodation set up where the teacher knows to ask, or like drop the key at the desk every like 2 hours, or some sort of accommodation. How long should that accommodation be in place before you start to say, okay, like now we need to move to the next stage?
Because you want to see that progress in other areas. So, in other words,
Well, how
think of
is
it
there like
as,
a is there a time frame, or is
no,
it
there's
really
no time
depends?
frame. No, it's based on the child's progress in other areas. I'll give you an example. Let's say the child started kindergarten completely mute. They build nonverbal skills, they're comfortable nonverbally. Like, I'd say, well, what are you doing to progress them? You need the teachers to start asking. I use the same questions a lot with you in this podcast, because it kind of like sets the stage for just the example I'm trying to provide of using choice questions. Do you want red or blue? And the child points. Do you want red or blue? The child has a verbal intermediary. Do you want red or blue? Tell Rebecca. As a simple, and the teacher repeats with that eye contact as the basic verbal intermediary. Of course, there's ways to kind of adapt the verbal intermediary based on how that child responds to that. Maybe it's reading. Do you want red or blue? And the teacher writes out red, blue, and the child goes red or blue. Or maybe it's just the first sound. Again, I don't know. It's based on that particular child. Once you get to the child consistently being able to use their words in a way that they're bridged up, you can start to use that for the bathroom. And if you want to do it
Yeah,
simultaneously and the child is responding to that, that's fine. Again, it's every child is different. It's not like,
but
it's
the
a
goal is to
rubric
get the
for every
speech.
human. Well, the goal is of course, the goal for everyone is to become a confident social communicator. And obviously, that means being a confident verbal communicator. But we also have to understand that we have to help that child, in this case,
Yeah,
reach their capacity. I don't know what else is going on with this child. Are there
right.
other reasons that may prevent that child from being a verbal, confident communicator?
So
Do you know what I mean?
it's always very unique. And it makes me realize, or it confirms that beginning of the school year is probably the hardest time of the year for these students, because they're just getting comfortable with their teacher and vice versa. So there's
I
probably
think,
a lot of warm up period that where there's like the teacher needs to kind of understand what they're working with.
yeah, I do think that that's true, but it doesn't mean if the child is already verbal at the start of the school that they're shut down and highly anxious. It just means that's their starting point. So the
Right.
beginning of the school year and anxiety starting. In some ways, the end of the school year can be very anxiety provoking for children because they got used to that environment, the kids in the class, the teachers, and they've made progress. And typically at the end of the year, most children don't feel anxious at the end of the year, but many kids with SM that I've worked with actually get anxious at the end of the year because schedules change, the
Right.
end of the year, transitions, and many of our children don't do well with that. So it's almost like they're alone in that challenge. Whereas at the beginning of the year, everyone's nervous and anxious for the most part. Not everyone, but the
Right.
majority. So they're
It's a
like in
bit
the same boat,
it's different energy for sure.
different energy.